Yes, Liam, great to have you on. Right, now lots of people are wondering what on earth is going to be in this little mini fiscal package. Do you have any ideas?
I do indeed, Patrick. After, a long process of rightly mourning and reflecting on Her Majesty's death over the last week and more, politics and economics news really is back this week. Tomorrow morning, there's going to be a business energy support package unveiled by the new business secretary, Jacob Rees-Mogg. A lot of people who follow GBNews, who run small businesses, will be really interested because so many of them contacted me in recent months. My energy bill has gone up 4, 5, 10-fold. My business is going to collapse unless I get some help. And there's no energy price cap at all for businesses. There'll be an announcement on that tomorrow. On Thursday, we've then got some interest rate decisions by the Bank of England. And on Friday, as you rightly say, it's Kwasi Kwarteng's mini budget. Now, it's not going to be very mini. The reason they're calling it a mini budget or a fiscal event is because the government doesn't want the Office for Budget Responsibility coming up with pesky forecasts that are a bit awkward, that say the government's sums don't add up. The Office for Budget Responsibility is sort of official Treasury watchdog. And if they say it's not a budget, it's a fiscal event, then the OBR doesn't have to do all those big forecast, but it's going to be it's going to feel a lot like a budget, and I'd say it's actually going to be a lot more of a historic and important for firms and households statement than most other budgets that we've covered over the years.
Well, it's good news potentially for businesses anyway, who have been at real risk of going to the wall in recent times.
For some businesses, but as far as I know, the support for businesses is only going to last for 6 months. And then the government's going to decide on a case-by-case basis which businesses get ongoing support. That will be hugely controversial if ministers go ahead with that. We'll see. The Friday household business energy support package, it's the one that Liz Truss outlined in Parliament, in her first statement in Parliament.
Yeah.
And she got, half an hour into it, and then news began filtering out of Her Majesty's unfortunate deterioration in health. So that's what's on Friday. That should be lasting 2 years for most households. As of today, we've got a disability allowance, cost of living disability allowance, a kind of top-up of 150 quid. 6 million people will be getting that between today and the end of September, the Department for Work and Pension says. And then on Friday, there'll be news of that energy price cap for household fuel bills and other forms of support. It's going to cost a lot of money, Patrick, and a lot of people are worried about the extent to which government borrowing is going to rise.
I think that's remarkable, actually, on top of all of that, to find out clearly how many people are on disability benefit in this country, by the sounds of things.
That's right.
An astonishing amount of people, actually. They might say 150 quid isn't enough.
Of course they will, and rightly so, because we're all going to be paying a lot more for our energy this winter than last winter, even with all this help. That's, that is, if I didn't say that, I'd be lying, and I don't want to give people misinformation. I don't want to be alarmist, but that is just the long and the short of it. On top of that disability cost of living allowance that the government is giving, there's also £400 for all households to help with energy bills. That's not means tested. Even the wealthy get that, which is controversial. And another £650 for households that qualify for other benefits like pension credit and housing benefit and so on. So it's complicated, but we will, of course, be giving you all the details and all the insights throughout GB News special programming on Friday.
Can I ask what the Halligan household is doing in order to cut back on energy stuff, or are you just turning your lights off?
I grew up in a household. I grew up in a house with no central heating. Yeah. And so it really doesn't bother me. Yeah, it really doesn't bother me. But Mrs. on the money.
Mrs. on the money.
She really feels the cold. So there's constant struggles over the thermostat with passive-aggressive movements. But look, joking aside, it is really worrying, Patrick. I still foresee, and it gives me no pleasure to say this, I still foresee quite a lot of non-payment. There's petitions going around now, even with this additional help of people not paying their bills. I see some really nasty conflicts between energy providers and households who say they can't pay, won't pay. This is a very, very worrying time. And as I said, it's going to cost the government a lot of money. It may not cost as much as people think if those wholesale fuel bills come down. That depends a lot on the war in Ukraine. But even though it is definitely risky, all this extra government borrowing, I'd say, Patrick, politically, it's even riskier to do nothing.
Well, I suppose so as well, and not least, well, there's the moral argument, of course, there is, but there's also the optics of it all as well. You know, elderly people freezing to death in their own homes, for example, if you do nothing.
We know it happens.
Yeah.
We know it happens. We know that not just elderly people, a lot of households have in the past had to choose between heating and eating. We're going to be hearing a lot more about that phrase going forward. So after this massive hiatus, it's 76 days since Boris Johnson resigned, and today is the first sort of day of real politics, back to school, public policy, if you like. Even with that big hiatus, the government wants to get immediately on the front foot, saying it's ahead of this crisis rather than struggling to catch up. And that's why in the next 72 hours, there's going to be an absolute slew of economic policy announcements.
Good stuff. That means I'll be seeing rather a lot of you then, by the sounds of things. Liam Halligan, thank you very, very much. Liam Halligan there with You're on the Money.